Let's jump to this story from ABC 3340. That's a big number. Fetterman says stroke gave him freedom to distance himself from progressives. Very liberating. This was a meme. This was a meme that Fetterman was this progressive guy, suffered a stroke, and then it snapped him out of it. And then he became sort of just like this normal Democrat. And now he's saying it's true. This is absolutely wild. I mean, hey, shout out to Fetterman. So Fetterman explained to Bill Maher on his show Real Time what prompted him to separate himself from progressives. Fetterman has repeatedly distanced himself from fellow Democrats in recent months. During the show, Maher asked him why he tends to diverge. He said, I think there's a big difference between an old school liberal and a woke person. You say progressive Democrat. How do you describe this? Maher asked. I've been saying that for years. Fetterman agreed. I didn't leave the label. It left me. Oh, he's pulling the left me, huh? He credited his recovery from his stroke for giving him freedom to speak his mind. And in the near-death experience, taught him he no longer wants to be afraid of it if there's any kind of blowback. Quote, there's not going to be any kind of way how the Democrats are going to be able to reply to that. I really decided early on that I believed that was going to be the right side with Israel throughout all of that. And I knew Democrats would continue to peel away and kind of walk away from standing with Israel on that. Maher then asked how some liberals came to support Hamas when they'd historically been strong supporters of Israel. And Fetterman acknowledged many Democrats have begun to overlook what Maher calls a gender apartheid in the Middle East. There are no rights for women, and they certainly don't embrace the LGBTQ lifestyle, Fetterman said of many Middle Eastern countries. Queers for Palestine blocked the Pride Parade in Philadelphia, and I just never saw that on the bingo card. You know, we all did. We saw this coming because I think it was in, I don't know, the UK counties or whatever. It's like Birmingham maybe in the UK or something. I don't know. But there was this big story 6 years ago where a bunch of LGBTQ activists showed up to a bunch of Muslims who were protesting LGBTQ curriculum in schools. And you've got women in full, like, niqab, is that the right word?
There's a couple different, burqa and niqab, I'm not sure which one.
Yeah, niqab is the full covering, right? And there's like women fully covered with gloves on. And there's LGBTQ protesters showing up being like, we're doing this for you. And they're screaming like, no, degeneracy and like other really bad things at these people. It's like, it was plainly obvious to everybody that the whole conservative religious institution of Islam is not going to abide by the LGBTQ stuff. Fetterman saying, I didn't see on the bingo card. That explains why he was a progressive for as long as he was. And then he saw the bingo card, and now he's figured it out.
The only thing the Jews and is like religious Muslims, like actually religious Muslims, have in common is they're not really all that fond of the West, and they hate the Jews. The idea that you can have a population in your society that's dictating religious laws in a liberal society, it's like we were talking about earlier. This is not going to work, right? You're not going to have a situation where the population is going to say, okay, we're okay with LGBT stuff, or the incoming population that has committed religious goals, right? Or committed religious convictions. They really believe their religion. And fair enough, but like, you're not going to get them to say, oh, well, we believed our religion before, but now that we're inside this geographic area, we're going to go ahead and loosen up that stuff because we're here. They're not going to. They're going to ask for the area that they're in to change because they've already started changing it. There's talk about Sharia patrols and stuff like that. You hear about that in the UK. I've heard that that's happening in New York right now.
I've heard that too. What I actually was thinking when you're talking was there are cities that have been asked for permission to play the call to prayer because they have such a significant Muslim population at this point, which is interesting, right? Like, maybe it's up to the city to decide whether or not they want to do that. But again, if theoretically the city was a Christian nation, that's not something that's traditionally there. So the society is changing to accommodate this cultural practice. I think Fetterman's comments are really interesting because what he's saying is like, I am not going to go along with what my party is saying, and especially for a pretty new member of the government. that's unusual, right? That usually there's a period where everyone's sort of falling in line and wanting to curry favor with the more senior members. And so in some ways, I feel like I did give Fetterman, I feel almost bad that I gave Fetterman a hard time, because for a while there, he was just like really out of it. It did not seem like he was going to be able to stay in office at all. And now he seems to be becoming sort of the most interesting part of Congress right now.
Definitely the most sane Democrat. One thing on this, I call these privilege point debates, and I love watching them. Right, it is. That's always my asterisk there. But privilege point debates are what I would call these. And as a white male, I sit back and let these groups argue it out with each other. But the Philadelphia parade, I mean, when those two groups are going at it, they're trying to tell and signal to each other what is the priority, right? What is the priority of our virtue signaling groups, and who gets to be the standard bearer? And they go where there's attention. So it's a jealousy thing, right? No, you guys can't have this parade. This is higher on our priority list of virtue signaling. We must have this as the priority. And I just like to sit back and let them argue, because most people were like, wow, this is insane.
I mean, you're making me think of all the protests where you see, pro-Palestine people clashing with Pride March people.
Right.
And you're like, you would have thought you were all the same team, except I never thought you were the same team, but you guys sort of did, and now you're fighting. Like, interesting.
Just against the West, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Fetterman's funny, though, in PA, my home state of PA. People always ask, how'd you guys elect John Fetterman? And it's like, the one thing he has going for him, and I can get in trouble for saying this, is he is like a very normal guy. And I don't mean that like mentally. I mean, he just interacts. He's a normal guy, and that's kind of his shtick.
That's why he does the hoodie and the shorts.
Oz comes in from New Jersey. They got Snooki to do the video, blew up Oz, whatever. Oz didn't want to do ballot chasing. That's for another day, my little plug there. But Fetterman, I think it's funny to see this break between like the whole donor class, right, and the activist class, and he's just like, to hell with you guys, I'm doing my own thing.
This is a mistake that a lot of people on the right made with Fetterman. They started attacking him for the way he dressed in his campaign, and I said, you will lose because of this. Because there's going to be some blue-collar Democrat guy who wears a hoodie and shorts, and he's going to be like, these stodgy, uptight dudes are insulting me. It's the same thing with Trump and the well-done steak with ketchup. Donald Trump orders a 30-day dry-aged steak, probably $120 steak, by the way. And then he says, I want it well done with ketchup. And the media took the bait. And they mocked and belittled him and laughed at him. And I knew that there was some middle-class dude who had just got back from his local Save-On or whatever with a couple of T-bones, frying them up on a pan, looking at the TV, looking down at his food, looking at his kids, and being like, What are you yelling at me for?
Yep. He's like, well, I mean, it's medium well, but still, like it's like small things like that.
You pair that with Oz in the grocery store that he like had this big gap where he talked
rough.
about, was it crudite? I don't even know. I don't know what that is. Yeah, crudite. That should tell you about my upbringing.
Bladder.
Yeah, and it's like all my buddies
making ratatouille, which again,
right, all my
Is that what he said?
all my buddies,
Fired by Disney.
all my buddies outside of Philadelphia are like, what the hell is that? And I'm like, I don't know. And they ran with that. But it goes exactly back to that.
Yep.
Fetterman connects. He does. Even if you think he's crazy, he connects with people.
And listen, you need to understand the depth of human consciousness on average is relatively low. People are just thinking, like the average person is just thinking about what they need to get through the day. They're not sitting there having some deep moral philosophical conversations over tax policy and the percentage increase in the interest rates. All they're doing is saying, look, man, I come home from work. My kid says, Dad, I'm hungry. I say, we're going to go grab some food. I am tired. I am filthy. And the cheeseburger costs $5. Okay. I vote for people so they can figure that thing out while I'm building houses, while I'm fixing toilets. Society runs because of these people, and they don't want to have those big debates. So Fetterman shows up and says, I got cheeseburgers. And then you get Oz and he's like, crudité in my fine suit.
And $5 for a cheeseburger for your 4-year-old, you're going to spend, the kid's going to eat half of it maybe. But still, it's an exorbitant amount of money, and the average person is struggling. So if you seem like you're above that, like if you seem like you don't understand, can't relate, you're done.
What's the Bill Gates thing? Wasn't he in an interview and someone was like, well, how much does milk cost? And he was like, I don't know, $10.
No idea. No, they asked Hillary that. Like during the 16. Like, what's a carton of eggs cost? She had no clue.
I have no idea.
There you go.
Because I have chickens.
Here's our elitist here.
Because I have chickens. So we have like 140 eggs downstairs.
I'm so sick of this.
Really?
chicken
You're my new egg
elitism.
guy. I'm going to have to buy my eggs.
Have a
from
carton
you.
on your way out. Because we got a city full of chickens. So I can't tell you how much they cost because we just have an infinite supply. They make more of themselves and they make more eggs. And then sometimes the eggs become more of themselves.
All you got to do is protect them.
That's right. We got to put a little fence around them, and then, the roosters do a good job, though.
I think the first time I ever heard of Fetterman was, I'm going to totally be clear of how much estrogen I have right now. First time I had ever heard of him, he was on a relationship podcast with his wife, and they were talking about how they met and like giving their love story. And this was, I think it was either in 2019 or 2020. And so they think he really did lead. A lot of people do this when they're about to enter, another level of politics, that they sort of soft launch with like a book, or they've got a documentary, or like whatever. But it was really interesting because it definitely led with like I am just a local boy who does these things and I support my wife while she does whatever. Like it was much more about being relatable, or about the relationship as it was in its current state, than about, seeming like it was an insight into sort of a glamorous lifestyle that you're not a part
of. The guy got elected to the U.S. Senate. He looks like Uncle Fester, and I don't think enough people give him credit, because it's like he pulled it off. He's a genius politically. I mean, people like think, oh, he's this.
Someone said stroke of genius in the chatter.
he attached himself to Wolf, who he was a lieutenant governor, right? So he attached himself to this rich, kind of stuck up Democrat, very like old school liberal, and keeps his mantra, and that's how he got funding. That's how he got through. And I mean, it was crazy. And then for him to jump in, I mean, nobody thought he could win a U.S. Senate race. And I get in trouble for saying, I give him credit because he pulled off a win.
Okay, can I ask you a question about the vice president's candidates? Because I have heard, there's a short list. Doug Burgum's theoretically on it, Marco Rubio, JD Vance. And one of the things that I have heard is one of JD Vance's appeal is that he is from, Appalachia, grew up with this crazy childhood. He is more relatable to a lot of Americans than someone else. Do you think that's an appeal that works for conservatives too? Or do you think it's just about winning, conservatives? Is his effect only appealing to conservatives when they see it from a Democrat?
I think JD Vance would be an amazing political choice. I happen to agree with him on a lot of ideological positions too. But I do think that, it's a political calculation, right? I mean, a lot of people are pushing for Tim Scott or Ben Carson. Doug Burgum is in consideration because he comes with hundreds of millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. So I think there's different reasons, but I think the number one reason you pick somebody like a JD Vance is I do think he connects not just with conservatives, but with those folks who care about putting food on the table for their kids. JD Vance, read his book, watch the movie. I mean, it does connect. He had a tough life. And I think when you look at those things, I think those stories and focusing more on those issues than like the policy issues of trying to pick somebody that, Tim Scott is his policy record. No, what's the story? And how do you connect with people? So that's why I think JD would be a great choice.
Thanks for watching this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to check out the live show Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. on this channel. Subscribe and we'll see you all there.